We are now live. We are live. Well, thank you everybody for coming to this new webinar. Now we are spreading out all this signal from Spain. Now it's 7 p.m. Probably in other places it's different time. So first of all, to thank you to attending to this webinar. And well, today we have two real very interesting professional. Well, this is a webinar focused on the real-time VFX artists. Well, this is speaking Alex Lopez. I'm the director for UA School, and this webinar is going to deal with the topics of introduction of this kind of profiles, very interesting in the industry, and of course to talk about what is a real-time artist, or what the heck is a real-time artist. For the reason, we invite to JAMEY MOULTON and ARMANDO Sepúlveda. They are lead VFX artists from BIOWARE. They are working in projects like Anthem or Battlefront. It's really interesting. And at the end of the webinar, we are going to talk about how to come into the industry. Both JAMEY and ARMANDO is going to tell us about the tips and tricks to come into the industry, and how to move inside these kind of companies, these kind of big studios companies. Also at the end, we are going to open a debate about question and answer, so a Q&A. So I hope you enjoy this kind of webinar. First of all, if you allow me to do, we are going to introduce our school. We are broadcasting the channel from UA School Valencia. We get two facilities, Valencia and Hollywood, there in California, in LA. And first I'm going to show you the demo reel of the students. It's, almost everything is work in progress, because we are in the half of the year. So at the end of the year we will have the final reel. So we're going to start to having I think we got a problem here. Let's again. Oops. Something is wrong here, or just give us a second. Okay, it's okay. 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 Let's move on.
What's happening?
What happened here? Well, everything is working. Well, we're going to have a sneak peek from our students, and this is the half reel from the 2019. We can see there are examples from modeling, sculpting, and video games. Even we are teaching cinema. Well, it's really interesting. Just check it out. let's move on. Well, I'm going to explain you, allow me just a brief history of Universal Art School. We opened at the beginning of the 90s. We are specialized in 3D, CGI, concept art, cinema, animation, a lot of topics from the digital sector. We got a lot of hours of training. We get a lot of hours, student project hours, very interesting. We have also international accreditation. We are ranked in the 14 scale, the worldwide. And we got here what we call a real training. It's what we call a zero-line schedule. It's not fat training. It's like having a real training with no theory. Is go to the point. So it's very interesting because in a short time, people can learn more topics and more things in the industry. And of course, we offer a post-course assistance to all the students because it's important to take care of the students before, during the training, and later. After the training, and to see what's going on with the companies, with the employment and these kind of things. So it's very interesting to have a nice and intense relationship with the students during all the relationship with the school. We have two facilities. Also, we are developing an immersion programs for people who want to study here in Valencia or in Los Angeles, in the facilities we got there in BIOWARE Street in North Hollywood. And the thing is to sharing different cultural aspects that people can study. Because we are talking about Spain or we are talking about the Hollywood, California, but we got students from all over the world. So probably the students that come from Pakistan or come from Canada, from India, from France, can even sharing culture in Spain or even can move to other countries for study. So it's very interesting. So at the same time, we are having this kind of these 3 months for study in both places. And of course, people can study here in Spain or in USA. So it's interesting locations for go there. Talking about a little bit about the magic of Universal Art School. The first thing is we don't have a specific admission process based on the academic data. We have a personal interview. We are more interested in profiles that want to really study and want to get into the industry. So we have, I think, a special admission process. We are facing to all kind of audiences. So if someone wants to go to the industry and want to study these kind of things, our admission process is I think, is very personalized. So it's interesting. We have 100% training, project-oriented practice. This is very important. This is our claim. No? This is beyond the university. We're trying to go to the point and save time and go faster with all the stuff and all the subjects and so on. No? Of course, we are 100% company-oriented training. So it's every year we update all our syllabus, our training programs, to have the last software application, the last plugins, the last everything, to have very new every year, all the training, no? Have all the elements new. Also, we have a 3D virtual campus. It's also very interesting. All our classes is recorded and is later uploaded to the campus. So both online students and face-to-face students can have access to the information, to the tutorial, to all the classes that have been taught face-to-face, and again at their homes can see it again. So it's very interesting. We have a very special employment system for students. We are working with recruiters for worldwide. So it's about to develop a nice demo reel first, and later we can move within different levels the student projects. So it's interesting. Also, a very nice thing we have is accelerator program. It's all the students in the last year have to make and develop, and later I'm going to explain a little bit more. And of course, the structure like we have today, Armando or Super Armando and Super Jamie. They are in the top sector, of course. So the thing is to try to size this professional environment and bring into the training. It's very important. Well, we have students working in top studios worldwide. This is one of the things to get to get a job. Other students want more to focus on to develop their own indie company, video games or whatever. So the thing is to move on. We have some examples. Student working in Wera Digital and LucasArts. Well, it's huge, and it's very interesting because the students is at their own. They are working. They are in the industry. So it's very interesting. So we have here a small example. This is a company called tartilars.com. Was created by two students here, and this is the real. They got a very nice success in Spain because this video game we call the Real Raider. It was done with real dynamics and was made in the classroom. Inside the class. So it's very interesting how two students that they meet one each other in class. They get they associate on each other, and they create this company, and they launch 10 months later from the training a very interesting video game for mobiles, and it's for iOS and for Android. So this is a brief of well, you can check it out, all the information. This company is a company is in Madrid, based in Madrid. They got really a nice success with this video game. They got a big offer for big companies to buy the video game. Well, they are in the industry, and they came here from zero, and in 1-2 years they finally touched the real market. So one of the things to tell the student that they are be able to get a job in the industry. At the same time, the other option is to create your own projects and your own company. So it's very interesting, no? After this, the Real Rider project, they launched the Galaxy Rider. That is the same time. It's a guy in the bicycle, but in the space with no gravity. So it's a little bit strange, but it's nice. So it's a free-to-play, so you can download this video game from the Google Play or the Apple Store. So just to check it out, it has a nice quality. And here we have a student after the master talking about the project. Well, sorry, because it's in Spanish, but we are making putting the text in English to all the people can check how is the process that follow a student to get a video game done just practically in 15 months. So it's very impressive. In this case, this kind of video game is a cel-shading video game, very interesting, and it's more than to kill people or something like that. It's more a experience, an environment experience about the game, friendship. It's interesting. It's like a more philosophical video game. It's also very interesting. We can have video games from offer social services or or a video game for different purposes about to explain things in society, or well, video games are very important thing. It's not only to make something more concrete about a kind of a shooter or something like that, but the thing is, a student can develop their own creativity doing games for any kind of purposes. I think it's very nice because a student can develop their own creativity into new frontiers. So it's interesting. Also, we are developing a GTA, a Grand Theft Auto, but in Ibiza. Is going slowly because we built the Ibiza. I mean, all the map from Ibiza. We can have here to see a little bit the environment. This is a first environment test from the Ibiza. I think we need to include a lot of this. All these objects, all these things, all these assets were built by the students, so they get a huge work, a huge, massive thing. But one thing very interesting is that a student can combine from different areas, a student from the programming sector or the art sector. I mean, in different master career, they can put together their own skills and work an important, a more powerful video games. So this is only the power of the environment, the test, the first test, and it's well, we can see the streets and the cars, well, everything. Well, it's interesting. Other things, now we have another example. This is all example of from this year, and it's a work in progress, of course, and we are testing. Also, I think it's interesting that the student can develop video games for mobiles. So it's a huge market making mobiles video games. And here's also another stuff.
18.
This is a video game called Dungeon. It's a very early version, no? This video game was so incredible because it was made by students in the third month. So in the third month of training, it was developed all the map with the texture with Susan Painter and Maya software. So it's a first test. I think it's interesting. This is made. It was made 7 version of this map. Was interesting. So it's a nice exercise to come into the industry. So other things now is we got another project. Is also work in progress. It's a side-scroll video game. It's called Trailblaze. So we're going to check this. We don't have sound. It's also first test, and also it's another idea for having in a short period of time professional video games. And students allowed to be focused on the texture and the animation of the game design, and develop these kind of projects for getting a nice reel, a professional reel, in order to show to the companies. So it's interesting. Other things that we are doing now is cinematics test to introduce the video game. Also, this is a work in progress. This is called The Bad Thing. This is just a very early example of a cinematic text, which is important to, try to help the students to get knowledge about the cinematics and how to deal with. So it's just also very interesting to make the students learn these kind of skills. Well, finishing, we have to tell that after 3 million hours training taught, we're develop our system. It's called the training routes. We got 11 combinable modules in masters, 3 and 4 years careers, and this allow us to organize plus than 50 custom training careers to choose. So instead of going for a master or for a career, the thing is first to get the mood. Students. The student want to ask for information. We request information about. I want to do animation. I want to do better games. I want to program. I want to have. Want to become into a concept artist. The thing is first you choose the route that you want to develop, and our system allow you to combine in 1 year the different aspect of making video games. So it's very interesting because in a short period of time you are ready to go out to get a job in the industry if you are made the effort of develop a nice project. But it's important to go to the point and let the student choose their own training. So sometimes the virtual campus, you can check it out in campus.ua.school. We got a gamified virtual life and training with avatars campus. So it's go beyond a static Moodle platform. So we got here a gamified structure, and we are increasing, and we are having more features to get the contact among the students there inside the campus. But the students, they want to contact with other students that they don't even know or they don't know. We can introduce themselves in the campus, and even to have a chat or even to have an Skype conversation inside of the campus. So it's very interesting because having students worldwide, people can share their different ideas. Well, it's interesting. So this kind of campus we offer to our students to have a more interesting environment, a learning environment. And the training structure to see go a little bit more in depth is the 2-year master, 3 years career, and 4 years career. And the last year is what we call the accelerator program. And the accelerator program is the elective year where students have to do a real project. It's more than a teaching time. Is a doing time, and the student have to develop a nice reel, or prepare the work to face to investor to get the investment from all their own project investor. And of course, sometimes can work for a final client. So it's interesting because the last year is 100% working and know the things. The CT program is what is how it works. Is the symbol of the Avengers, basically.
So, this all seems horrible.
I've seen worse.
Sorry.
No, we could use a little worse.
Stuck. We got it.
Banner,
Just like you said.
and tell him to suit up. I'm bringing the party to you.
I don't see how that's a party.
Dr. Ben. Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Cat. I'm always angry.
that is the picture, the whole picture. I mean, you are. I mean, the students are the Avengers. It's in a mythic way. The Avengers are different people with different backgrounds, with different skills, and they are working together in order to, with their own way, their own move, face the market. I mean, the aliens here are the market. So it's very interesting because the accelerator program is about to deal with emotion, with a lot of work, you know. Well, it's like to say to the trenches. I mean, it's go to the war. It's very interesting because happen here a lot of things. One thing is to know and to have skills for producing. I mean, to develop I don't know, a 3D object or a character or a program or a video game. But I think it's how to produce with a timing. So there in the accelerator program, we structure and we establish a timing for 9 months in order to finish, like in a company, all the stuff that the students have to do. So it's very, I think, very intense. Also, plus our accelerator program, we are working with PlayStation talents. I'm sure this is only in Spain. I don't know why, but the PlayStation Challenge is a kind of well, accelerator program that has here Sony for students or for the project that want to be in the market. Sony can buy your project or can distribute your project. So all our students has access to Sony PlayStation in order to publish in case of PlayStation want to the project and feel that it's a good project. And even there, the accelerator program is another year. They are in Sony PlayStation here in Valencia in huge facilities. So this is another option to come into the industry for the students. And also we are working with the Ubisoft. They're in France, but they are getting a student to work with Ubisoft for getting projects in the project. So there are a lot of companies worldwide that are interested in get new projects, because the indie project, I mean the small project, also is a nice business for this kind of big companies or be the publishers. And well, yeah, to finish, of course, I'm sorry for my delay. We have here the new calls. We have face-to-face and online. So if someone wants to ask, need more information about all we have here, we are absolutely ready to answer back to you. You get there on the email, and we can be in contact with all of you in order to get more information. And of course, this next October, we have this 3-year career in a real-time VFX artist. That is the topic of today. And it's of course is taught by professional from electronics and BIOWARE, so it's very also interesting. No? So okay, I'm going to introduce you. You don't see before the video of Armando and Jamie introducing their themselves and at the same time this career, and it's a 2-minute video. And after the video, we're going to start with the webinar. So let's go to see it.
Hi, my name is Armando SEPÚLVEDA. I'm the lead VFX artist at Star Wars The Old Republic.
And I'm Jamey Moulton, and I'm responsible for the visual effects of Anthem Live. We want to introduce you to the video game industry, and we want to give you a unique skill set as a visual effects artist. This is a role you can learn to fill, but it requires training and some hard work. Right now, there aren't schools available that currently offer this specific focused training.
As a VFX artist, you are not only required to do VFX itself, so you end up doing modeling, lighting, rendering, compositing, so many other fields, including actually some additional software just to create your simulation.
Visual effects require a very trained eye. We want to teach you the small details that matter and how to troubleshoot. It's very hard to find great VFX artists right now in the industry, and if you're good, you'll be in high demand.
We designed a well-crafted training that will shape you into a top professional in real-time VFX.
We want to give you a full understanding of our industry, and we'll show you all the aspects of game development. We want to teach you how to do your job well, who you'll be working with, and how the game industry really works.
We have been working on this training for quite a long time, and we were thinking what was the best way to bring it to you. So we partnered with Universal Art School, which we think is the best platform and is a reliable business that we trust.
So UA School has educated students in film and games for over 25 years. They have a great online platform with many resources, and they have an expert team that'll support your production.
Our VFX courses will run like a real project. So we have producers, designers, supervisors, and we have also other art disciplines that are going to be blended with us.
Some of the examples of projects might be a real-time game where you get to work with programmers, designers, and other artists, or maybe running through cinematics with directors, animators, and storyboard artists.
By all means, this is not a fast track to the industry. This is a complete training, and we will mold you into a great VFX artist.
That's right. To find out more, visit UA School, and we hope to see you soon.
See you soon.
Okay, so back into the webinar. Well, I have to first to get thanks to Jamie. Now I see he's in California. Armando is fortunately he's here in Valencia. So we are going to start with the webinar, and well, it's okay. We can start with. Okay, you are okay, and now we can see there in the picture below. Okay, and we are going to put Jamie in the frame. So now all the people is watching us, no? So people is watching us and is watching Jamie. Okay, so well, I want to ask first, because face to our audiences, what the heck is a real-time VFX artist?
You can start. Jamie?
You want me to answer that one?
Yeah, go for it. I'll do my version.
What's a real-time artist, visual effects artist? Mostly it's when you jump into a game engine, what you need to do is you need to make sure you keep everything in mind as far as real time, something that moves fast, as far as computation, and you're creating a batch of art for whether it be for a character, for a non-player character, which we call NPCs, or a boss, or abilities, weapons, all those things. What you do is you'll basically package up visual effects from your game engine, and you'll pass on to other departments, say like program designers, or even other art departments like in cinematics. And our responsibilities are basically to run as a service. And so what we try to do is even between projects, in the case of BIOWARE, we're trying to get you between projects to project, and we'll try to move pretty fluid in order to help any department that's going to need some visual effects. So that could be anywhere from utility, where you can't function, you won't know what the boss is doing or what your player is doing without it, or it might be something nice to add, like a dust and smoke, or something that's kind of more like fluff in a cinematic that just makes it look nicer. So generally, the VFX artists are very, their knowledge base is pretty wide in the game industry, and then also in the art kind of sector. So a lot of us come from modeling backgrounds, over lighting, rendering, even film. Many times a lot more film folks are coming in to visual effects. But what it is it's sorry, sometimes they're like walking by. What it is it's a kind of like a generalist with a focus on visual effects. Mm-hmm. So if you found yourself as a kid, like I did, really interested in behind the scenes of film, and how do they make that explosion work, and how do they composite these backgrounds, that's kind of what drove me to get to this spot. but we're a little bit different than film, where we have to do it all in flight, and it has to run at 30 or 60 or even 90 frames a second if you're in VR. So it's a little bit different how we get there, but you can basically you can kind of equate it to anything you see in special effects in film, but at a faster rate in video games.
Almost nothing. What do you think about that?
No, that's right. I mean, in fact, my background was in games, was film, and it wasn't easy, the transition either. But interestingly, I found so many resources from my background that I could apply into games. And actually, game industry appreciate this. It's now starting to blend a little bit more film with gaming, which actually is interesting because you start seeing people coming from supervisors in ILM in lighting, and they start working in games, developing with the new technologies, of course, now with ray trace and stuff like that. They bring actually some knowledge that, not that it wasn't there in games, it's just we never applied it because we didn't have the tech. Now the tech is coming, new GPUs, new technology that actually allows a much more powerful lighting. And of course, these guys, they have pretty strong background. So companies that they have the resources, yeah, they want the best talent. So you'll be amazed that actually now both industries are mixing. So you never know, actually some of the students might be doing animation or I don't know, like cartoon, and you never know, actually some of those fields might end up in a game because the style and because the background. So that's why in our case as VFX, it's a good value that you are multitasking. You know, you're able to do so many things. And like Jamie said, it's kind of like a service. So we have to provide help and support to pretty much everybody. Kind of like no other than the engineers, but like environment and animation, I don't know, mechanics of course, and designers the most. But it's you have to understand a little bit the language with all of them. I mean, I'm still learning, so it's kind of like the most complex get the game, more stuff you need to go, and it's kind of like challenging. But it's you really need a lot of. It's kind of like a guru in a way.
A guru.
A guru.
So, but you mean, I mean, first to understand our audience, is a VFX artist, I mean, a real-time VFX artist, is like a new position, or is how many years in the market? I mean, it's because, to be honest, I don't hear for a long time this kind of position.
Yeah.
People say, okay, it's about animation, animator, or lighting. But real-time VFX artist is like is this a new position?
Well, yeah, it depends. Sometimes Jamie gave me actually that example. He was called animator because he was working in games. So people think, I'm an animator. Oh, so you do games? Like categories are, I think, sometimes for people that doesn't understand, they are misplaced. You know. Mm-hmm. So even myself, when I started in the industry, I didn't even know about. I mean, I knew about games, of course, but I didn't know about the categories. So I didn't know there was a VFX guy, you know, per se. And of course, once you start getting introduced, things get more complex. Games get bigger. So you have to start sectioning, you know, responsibilities. And maybe James actually can give you better examples within his team. They have different responsibilities, right? Because, like an example, in Star Wars, we do pretty much a little bit of everything. But for them, it's a bit more complicated. You want to talk about that, Jamie? Like the way you work in Anthem?
Sure. Yeah, with Anthem, it's big enough to kind of split into pieces. So if you have more of an expertise, say on environment stuff, so you have explosions and waterfalls and I don't know, say kind of gooey stuff or water, you may be in a different section which we would call world, and we call that world. And we have a story section that is more like cinematic, so that's going to support a lot of Houdini destruction, which actually we're starting a really big, it's a pretty cool destruction scene, and it's very ambitious and very heavy. So that's a lot of Houdini work that you bring in. And then I'm more part of the combat and gear team, so we support all the bosses and also creatures. So we support all the bosses, the NPCs, and then all the player character stuff, even the stuff that's on your backpack or when you fly away. And so it doesn't mean that, like say if Armando and I were on the same service team, it doesn't mean that he can't do what I do or I can't do what he does, but we might just be split up so you're really in tune with those designers and programmers for that amount of time. And we also run mostly in pods, and so that way you check in with those guys daily, sort of like some of the later year projects that we'll be doing. And so that way, you kind of know where everybody is, and they know where you are, and you know where you're at, and then also you can kind of you can work through troubles that are tripping you up. And so, yeah, so the way, one of the best things about getting split, when you get into more of a concentrated area, is if you want to explore Houdini a little more, you can get into some of the destruction. Like I did a destruction setup early on in Anthem, and I hadn't learned it yet, so I jumped online and looked at some different break things, and kind of just got started and got my node networks, and then you're able to use some of those softwares to grow your node networks. So it's like now I can pass that on to other guys, and they can use it. But yeah, so you end up kind of splitting to kind of your taste or your talent, or sometimes the VFX lead is just like, hey, we just need this coverage for now, and kind of try to be fluid with it.
Yeah, he brought a point actually, which is quite interesting about learning a tool that you never used before, or not too much, but it's a production need. And we are supposed to be like ready, to jump on at any point. So if there is a need to do some particular effects or visuals, and you don't have those resources or you don't know them, well, you say, okay, can I have this tool or can I have that one? And in a question of days, you are supposed to be ready to, okay, so it's actually amazing how much you learn from people working with you, because maybe I didn't touch the things he was doing, but then I see it, wow, how did you do that? Then that's pretty cool when I hear people in the industry, in teams, like how much knowledge you share. So even on the education, on the schools, when you get all that knowledge, there is so much, there is kind of like a limit that you can fit on your brain, but everything else will come with the work, and it comes based on the project, based on so many, like an example, like he said.
Yeah.
And there is a need to do that, so how do we do it? Okay, what resources do we have? Well, none. Okay, so what do we can get? Okay, let's get VFX or Houdini or whatever, and then you learn it, you use it. I've been doing like an example skyboxes with clouds and stuff, and I had to use View, which actually is kind of like an old tool, but it's effective. And I have a time to do the task. So some companies might be a little bit more generous with you, and they give you, okay, I'm going to give you 3 days so you can get up to speed, but this needs to be done no matter what.
Yeah.
And of course, you want the best quality, not just for the player, but just for yourself. It's your portfolio at the end of the day. So it's kind of like, not stressful, but it's challenging continuously, because on top of this is the industry is continuously changing or improving, and you have to be up to speed. So VFX, I'm not saying that other fields or other skills are not as much as this, because they're different, are more focused, like an example, in modeler, right? So of course you keep practicing, but effects, it's so much stuff required, that you have to be touching so many strings, So it's it's complicated.
Yeah, it's like probably you talk with someone and you say, no, I'm a real-time video effects artist. People can understand in a way the concept, like, well, you're the guy who made the explosion or the sparkle, but I think but I think it's go beyond, because how you can suppose that you can guess that an explosion have to work in this way, or sometimes I think you are developing like even set dressing there, even you are configuring all the world. It's like
it gets even more complex than this, because, and Jamie knows this as well, like we have to develop the idea, right? Okay, how will we do these particular effects, or somebody is asking for something, but sometimes we can't reach some of the tools or techniques, and then there is something called technical artists, and those guys are beyond, it's kind of like
the universe.
Yeah, it's like if you are talking about Houdini, then you bring the technical artist, and that guy is going to write the tools, it's going to okay. We know a little bit of that, but the problem is it's so time consuming, the task they have, and they have to develop stuff that that's the magic of Houdini. You might take a month to develop something, but then every day that thing is creating something new, because it's procedural. So we have some guys there at EA and we have talks every month, and I don't miss any, because it's always so amazing, the stuff they do either for FIFA or even stadiums that they are procedural, or trees, like I was telling you the other day.
Yeah.
So those are the guys that we can do stuff like that, but I guess it's not efficient from the task point of view, because we are more focused on developing content and creating the ideas, and these guys they need to break their brain to see, okay, how are we going to do that? What do you think about that, Jamie? Similar, right?
Yeah, we have there's one guy in particular that he's just become a guru of Houdini, and so if we ever get stuck, then we have him to go to, because you're not going to find that kind of thing online or anything, you know. It's like Armando was saying a little bit earlier, is, you know, it's good to get educated. Then once you get on the job, it's really good to get collaborative. That's kind of the environment we want to build with the VFX school. Is you may learn from him, may learn from her, from, you know, and it's kind of on the job. You just need to keep building your skills and everything. But yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of expertise, and so we're kind of a weird breed. Being VFX artists, we're kind of a lot of us are a collaboration of like environment modelers, animators. Some might be more animators, might be more modelers, things like that. So it's kind of weird where we come from, but in many cases we end up getting our expertise and we drive that into visual effects. It's almost like you take on a personality, and we have a few people around the studio that we can kind of take, like, say what Armando was saying with tech artists. We can take them in and we can use like shader expertise, and we have to do that too. It's not like we do have a shader guy, you know, on Anthem, but in many cases that might be you. You have to build your own shaders. You might have to, you know, we in SOTOR, we animate all of our own stuff that is not a character, which I like. I love that kind of thing.
Yep.
And so, you know, animation background, that's why we want to do some animation, you know, cycles in the VFX school too, because all of that contributes in different ways. So yeah, so I guess I forget
Yeah.
what your original.
Yeah, but yes, about the technical artist, and also that thing about animation. There is something. How can I explain? I think there is a tendency to believe that you have to know the best tools, and that way that's how you do the best games. And yeah, of course, but it's like photography. You might have a crap camera, but your pictures might be amazing, or you might have the most expensive Mark III or whatever, and the pictures are crap. So it's the hands, you know, at the end of the day, it's the artist who can, and how you use the tool. So like an example, I think the experience that I had in my career where I learned the most, and actually from Jamey, I learned a lot, it was because the engine on Star Wars, because it has so many, no limitations. I mean, the game works and everybody love it, and it's still there. So it keeps playing, and there is a lot of people, and it's not easy to make a game like that to perform that way. But you want to achieve something, and as an artist, you want to do the best you can. Kind of like, oh my goodness, I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that. Like an example, we don't have GPU particles, so how do we fake like 1 million particles? So you will be amazed the tricks you have to do something like that, which I learned from these guys a lot. I mean, they've been doing these kind of things for 7 years and developing the whole effects pipeline, which is insane. So if I was working with Unreal, which I love it, probably I wouldn't learn some of those tricks, you know?
Yeah.
And like an example, I mean, I can't go technical, but there are, let's say you want to flash a light, you know, with a blinking pattern or whatever. Sometimes most people will use Unreal, they will use a shader, and probably with some math, with the sine function, and you multiply or your power, whatever. And you know the way we do it on Star Wars, we do it with a texture. So we paint a gradient of color, black and white. And it depends on the distance.
Yeah.
We can actually loop it, or on and off. So we have one single texture somebody did, I don't know who. And there is like, I don't know, 1,000 options for blinking lights. And it's super fast, it's super cheap. There is no shader to load, because it's just one texture, and it's loaded only once. So you can have one environment with 1,000 lights, and they will be blinking. And actually, we can expose some dynamic data. So we'd say, okay, that light, let's increase the speed, like 50%. So you see actually a pattern changing and stuff. So many little tricks. But that's why, like an example, he said, on animation, you need to know animation, because the engine doesn't have the physics you will have in Unreal. Therefore, how do you fake a bouncing effect? Or particles, but that's engineers. Those are the guys that say, okay, we don't have physics. How do we make the particles to hit the ground? So I don't know how, but these guys developed that through code, and it works. If you want to do that by hand, okay, so that's when it comes. Sometimes you hit it, it disappears, but then you throw something else. So you're thinking it's a bouncing. It's not a bouncing. It's just when that particle dies, another one gets spawned. So tricks like that, that's the thing. If you don't get to a job like that or a project like this with this kind of engine, you don't learn it. and people is confused thinking that every single company has the best engine. So is like I was telling you before,
Yeah,
like
before, yeah.
it's a business. So some companies are not interested in a license or royalties for Unreal, so they have to develop their own engine. It probably indies they don't have those resources, but EA has their own engine also, and they keep developing. It's not easy because it has to work for every kind of game, which is not easy, right? But then I don't know, Harmonix, Insomniac, I work with different engines, so and that's another thing. As a senior, well, no matter the level, in a way, I think everybody's expecting you to get there and in 2 weeks know how to use the engine. Of course, you will never be
Yeah.
an expert, but it's like when you have a training in the school, you got months, you know.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be like that when you get a job.
Definitely, yeah.
So that's why if you have all those basics and how things are supposed to be done, or tricks, or guru, that's why we call it like that.
So you both are trying to tell us that due to the restraint about
You're not wrong. I mean,
one engine, you have to be like an Avenger, a superhero. I mean, the thing
Yes.
is not only to have a high skills, but to have to deal with the concrete engine that a company has
Yeah.
there. And I mean, this is the thing. Is your point? I mean.
Yeah, and actually, of course, it's the team that you
Okay.
you work with. I was the last one to join the team in Star Wars and BIOWARE, and I learned so much from these guys in no time. So it's kind of like, and of course, that's why I was explaining on interviews. You want the people working with you, someone that you can actually interact properly, because that guy is the one that is going to be teaching you, you know, in a way, or you're
Yeah.
going to be sharing with him. And you don't want people selfish. That is kind of like, how do you do that? It's complicated, and then they don't tell you. Kind of like, you don't want that in your team, you know. So
No,
you
no,
want
no.
to do something, and then that's when it becomes sort of like a soup, you know, and everything is boiling in there, and you just enjoying it. So if you're looking for a company or a place to work, you should be looking for something like that. The engine, well, whatever. I mean, Unreal, of course, is kind of like the state of the art. So that's key to know. And if you don't know it, actually, people will give you trouble, kind of like, yeah, but we need at least, you know, the basics, you know. But then they might have another engine. And you're like, so why you want me to know Unreal if you have a different, yeah, well, because our engine actually is similar.
So to become into a good professional, like a real-time VFX artist, it's about to deal with the restraints.
Yeah.
With the engines. For reason, I mean, it's because we are develop the 3 years career program.
Yeah.
It's not allowed to teaching techniques, or is to focus on try to get the people learn about creativity, how to deal with the problems, you know, the troubles, the shooting problem, no?
Yeah, Jamie and I, we were talking about this in regards that when we start doing all the training and we get to the final project, we don't want to put limitations on the guys, you know. It's kind of like whatever you want to do, how crazy it sounds, just expose it. So let's see. We'll figure it out. We'll help you out. But the point here is to understand that as a VFX guy, is a problem solver, like we said, right? It's kind of like an engineer. I mean, I will never compare myself like an engineer of software, but you have to find the solution. You will be amazed, the brain, how much can, isn't it?
It's really about being a problem solver, right?
Yeah.
And so that's some of the stuff that we want. We want students to, we want to basically, we don't want to hold their hands. We want to teach them kind of sort of like fundamentals. If you were in a sport, we want to teach you fundamentals. And then we also want to bring them to kind of like a, a practice or a rehearsal. And that's when we all come together and things. But then we want to shove them out a little bit and say, okay, now you go perform. And then you also can take that a step further. You can learn on your own a little bit. And one of the big things like you were mentioning before with like when Armando and a couple of our guys came on, we had pages of documentation that wasn't there before. Like that's something that I always do at a company. And the onboarding process is really important to get someone ramped up quick. And so we want to do that with the school. Also, we both, there's a couple of things. We want to basically onboard into the industry, but also into tools and fundamentals. But we also want to be able to teach the students how to teach students, or to teach what will eventually be, hopefully, a lead or a senior or a very good mid-level person to be able to bring in a new guy. So that way, if you have a lead, like right now, if we're looking for a couple of hires at BIOWARE. So if Armando and I got got a new guy in, but we're, you know, Armando's in Spain, I'm in LA right now, so we're gone. But so if we could take, hey, mid-level guy, can you take this guy through the ropes and just, you know, get him trained up in these couple of weeks that we're gone? And that is so valuable. And so that's one thing we want to really press on the students is not only just don't just feed me and I don't want to be just taking, but I also want to be able to learn how to give. And then along with that is kind of the built-in, you know, when you teach, you learn, right? You once you've taught somebody a skill, it's you just learn it a lot better.
Yeah.
So that's kind of some of that attitude and the you know, if you hit a wall, you got to figure out how to get there. Is it the internet? Is it your colleagues? Is it, who knows, outside training or things like that? Once you're on the job, you don't get your instructors just to, you know, to run to the instructors. And so we will help a lot, you know, and we're going to be available for that, but we eventually want it to be so you're just a self-run, your own machine. And so I think that we do a pretty good job of that at where we work and on our teams and everything, which was why we have strong teams. And so I'm excited to see how the students, you know, can kind of take that on and run with that. So that's one thing I think is going to be really different with this group. Is we're not just going to hold your hand and show you where to click and everything. We want to show you why and what result you're driving to. So that way, if you jump in a new engine, it's not foreign because the buttons aren't there. You know the fundamentals. So you know where to find the different parts and pieces and then construct what you need to construct. So.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that companies are expecting for you to be quick. You know, they will give you time. You know, you just got there, Activision, whoever, Raven, whatever the company is, and they have their own engines. Some companies actually they have three different engines for different projects, depending. Yeah. And you should be able in a couple of weeks. So the more you get used to that concept, you go to the company, because if you get there and they give in 2 months you haven't produced anything, it doesn't sound too good for you. You know, so you need to be ready for okay, feed me. So. And I think it's a philosophy, pretty much. I haven't seen anyone that haven't been able. You know, it's complex, but that's why the test, like an example, we do in interviews, so we're trying to figure it out if the candidate will be right. My God, it's tricky, it's complicated, and well, I would say we are quite successful, but we talk because we talk a lot, right? So what do you think, what we think, and we respect a lot each other, right? Just not just us, but pretty much everybody there. And it's BIOWARE is actually quite a community, pretty strong, and
like a family.
Yeah, there is no someone with a higher voice than another one. Everybody is equal. So when we do an interview, what do you think? Yeah. So everybody has a say, and that's actually how I think we make the selections so efficient in a way.
Mm-hmm. So do you think, because probably the our audience is asking, they are thinking about how do you design the effects? I mean, do you have any kind of instruction or manuals, or is just like create what you want? Of course, with the restraint of the engines, you know. But I think people, do you have any kind of a department, the concept art department, who first draw the effects, or
well,
it's like a
Jamie, can you explain about the standards, like an example we use, and why we have them? Because I think that's
sure.
where the question goes.
So I have a little bit of hard time catching what you're saying, but are you asking about the process of how it gets started and kind of the life of it? Okay. So like Armando was mentioning, well, we actually have a number of different ways you can do that. One thing we do is we'll make a bank of standards. So we have a library, and it's kind of going to the service back to the service thing. We want to equip our designers and our programmers so they're not blocked in their development. So one of the first things we like to do is basically, let's say, make like a small, medium, large impact, or a bullet stuff or explosions, and that way, whenever they do all their boss interactions, they at least have something that represents what they're going to see. And then later we would come in behind them and we would kind of fix it and make it look proper. As far as the life of a VFX asset, it sort of depends on if you have concept or availability, or if you, it kind of depends on like the strength of your creative director and things like that. Currently, on Anthem, we don't have a lot of concept help. They're mostly doing environments and stuff like that. So we might be able to catch a little bit of VFX in a mood painting or something like that, but they don't use specific concepts for us. So what that means is now you have to get your creative hat on a little bit more. And so there's two sides to that. If you are that type that's a little more like almost like a painter, where you can kind of think about, visualize something in your head, then it's easy. If you're not, it's a little bit more difficult, and you have to gather reference and things like that. So reference is really big for us on the front end, and also just kind of keeping your eyes out there. Whether it's Facebook groups or Pinterest is oddly a really good place to find reference. If you kind of keep a bank of that, and then you can kind of pull from it as you go. So usually our assets will travel through some sort of idea. Usually it's because design needs to communicate something, or you need to dress up the set of environment or cinematic. So usually you kind of have a pretty good idea of where you need to go. On the order of, like, say, abilities, especially for Star Wars, it's pretty wide open. The only thing you have to stay inside is, like, if you have a Sith, it's a certain color set for the most part. So that way, if you look at a guy that's kind of across the way, he's a bad guy and not a good guy. So in those, we do have some rules that we can stay in, and so that kind of helps guide you. And then from there, so once we kind of figure out what the asset needs to accomplish, now you can kind of figure out the art inside of it, and that's kind of your bulk of where I personally feel, and probably Armando too, is that's the fun part, right? So you get to kind of figure out what it is, how it looks, how it works, and that's when all your fundamentals kind of come in to support what the art is. And like you guys were talking about earlier, is you do kind of have to leverage your technology ability, shaders, and even modeling, and then sometimes in animation, and then let that drive the art. So it's kind of funny how sometimes the tech, your technical skills drive the pretty part of the art. But so once you package that all up, you will have some sort of a delivery. So whether that's the designers or cinematics, or you're just kind of set dressing, things like that. You'll have some sort of delivery, and then that moves to folks like then Armando and I. When you have directors, that's when they would start getting involved and then start to kind of shape or guide a little heavier. And that also kind of depends on the personality and the ability of the effects artist. So more junior guys need to be handheld through the process, and we have a couple guys that you just ask them or let them know, hey, I need a boss package for this boss. This is kind of the idea, and they go. And so when you have more senior guys, it's a little more hands off. But so towards the end, it kind of funnels into a little more tweaking, kind of, just like in film, you would have your director's stamp of approval, and then we, once it's done, we deliver it and we sign off, and then we move on. So that's pretty much the life of it. Depending on which group you're supporting, it might differentiate the time that you spend or the iteration back and forth a little bit.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you have to also have in mind that depends on the project. Sometimes the project is like a huge amount of stuff that you need to throw at first, and then it comes like services, which is pretty much expansions, extensions, and then everything is already pre-established. So, like an example, when I go to Star Wars and we're doing all the expansions, everything is more or less already set up in a way, visually, so I know actually it was done previously. So there is no need to go over and over and over unless there is a new design or a new aesthetics. But if it's a brand new game, well, that's challenging, because yes, from the beginning everything needs to be established, and probably ideally you have concepts. But I mean, productions, there are budgets, there are teams, and it's not as simple. It's a complex process.
Yeah, the thing that's kind of interesting in games, you have a little bit of personality and leadership, and this is important in the interview process. This is stuff we'll talk about in school too. Is you need to kind of look at how they run things. You want to ask questions of like, am I okay with complete chaos, or do I want someone that's really like, strict in their production and things like that? Because you'll have the left and the right in games, and so like I haven't been part of film. Armando can maybe speak a lot more to film, but from what I understand, it's just so much tighter with your pre-production and your process, to get there with any asset. We're not always like that in real time, and so that's kind of one thing with the school, when you're going through too, we really want to, you have to really be able to be fluid, and you might have to take on all the way from concept, or you might be like, I want this exact thing. Here's the concept, and take
Yeah.
that little piece. But yeah, it's important. It's important to be able to be a little more fluid, and you know what I mean, and just be able to know what you're getting into on the front end too, in your interview process.
Yeah, I found myself actually with a task, and I kind of like blank, kind of like I don't know what to do. I don't know how it's supposed to look like. Can I ask for a concept? Nope.
Yeah.
Then kind of like, Jamie, what do you think about this? Or Ryan, or whoever, kind of like, I have to do this, and I'm completely lost. Then it depends. If you are such a gamer, maybe your inspiration comes faster, because, oh my God, I know every single ability, I know all the family from Dead Jedi. So it's kind of like easier to establish exactly what you know. But if you are not that much into, you're supposed to be into the story, that's for starters, but you're changing games over and over, right?
Yeah.
So, and sometimes there is no easy place to start with. So then, and the clock is ticking. So you have to come up with something right away. So sometimes you start with an idea, you just throw it, and then we start talking. Designers, no, that color is not helping. Or like an example in Star Wars, we can't use blood. We can't. So there is nothing red. How do you explode a creature? And what color is supposed to be the inside? So those kind of things, it looks like it's irrelevant, but it's important, And
Yeah. Well, I think talking with you, we can learn even that the video effects, also can affect even to the game design.
Oh my gosh, a lot.
Because you're talking about timing too. It's like shading or shapes, kind of explosion, a lot of details. But this kind of FS has have time. So this kind of time it can affect very in deep in a game design too. So do you agree with that? Or you have to talk with the game design department to get a more.
Yeah. But it's complicated. Have in mind that there is a timeline, and there is better said, there is a deadline. So you can play around with ideas a little bit. So that's why normally I rather start quick on something and just drop it. So I have feedback or opinions, or I see actually where I broke something or I screw it up, and then I can come back to it and I say, okay, now I have 2 days more. Now I know exactly where to work, where to fix. So sometimes people get so stuck on something slowly because you think you have the time, and then you realize you consume. Production teams in games, they study this, so, and they can see actually if you haven't, because you are supposed to take time off from that task that you have, maybe 3 days, and every day you put like, I did 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, and they can see the evolution. So let's say you don't do anything, and suddenly, on the last day you do the whole thing. How's that gonna look like? It's not gonna look better than if you progress it. So planning your own task, and this is on a daily basis. You get used to it, of course. But when you're starting and I see junior people coming to the team, I normally guide them through this and actually, no, be careful. Production is looking after your performance, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, don't sleep over, So it's just start with your things, put something there, so we will see, share with the team, share with your leads, whatever, art director, and then you can actually repath at any point. Because designers might want it in a particular way, but time doesn't fit for what they want, so then you have to adjust. And it's a negotiation, it's a back and forth. So it's kind of like, so far I never have someone disappointed, and people actually is quite professional. They understand there is so much you can do, and then they will, okay, yeah, I can take this, so don't worry, I'll figure it out and I'll do it another way. So it's, at least the design team for Star Wars, they do a lot of work. Oh my goodness, I don't know how they can come up with so many new ideas over and over and over. It's crazy. And they request a lot of work as well. But in a way, we want to fit them everything they need, so, and the best we can, but there's a little amount of time sometimes, so sometimes they just use standards, like we said, stuff we did initially, and they have to stay like that. So, and then we put it the best we can. Players, then they will come up, and of course there is always the feedback, and if you're doing good, wrong, or you're doing great. So, but that's community managers, they normally follow that up, and they tell us very often how good are we doing. So,
and the guy who tell you that it's wrong or it's good, the FX finally done, is the producer? Or?
No, mostly it's between us initially, art directors, which are the immediate level.
Okay.
But then, of course, I would say sometimes it's complicated because designers, they want it in a particular way, and that's how it's supposed to be. But the art director has the global vision. The designer they haven't seen the whole thing. They are probably focused on one particular fight, one boss. But the art director knows everything. So actually, I'm always saying the art director is the person you are supposed to follow no matter what. And discrepancies or depends who is leading. Our leads actually are quite professional, quite flexible, so we have a lot of say. And I can actually propose, let's get this blue for this fight, or let's get it purple or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes the art director comes like, wow, that's pretty nice. And there is no ego on, I own this design.
Yeah.
And designers, everybody, I think it's the best, because as soon as people start complaining, or I want because I want it like this, everybody has, then it will be a shit show.
So the art director is the guy who tell you, what is cool. It's like a
More or less.
Okay,
We propose
is
them.
the guy who say is cool or not cool.
Kind of. I mean, it's complex.
Sort of. Yeah, a lot of times it kind of depends on how your studio is set up, and kind of back to that personality of the studio. So like I worked at studios that are completely design run. They actually don't even care about what the art looks like. And BIOWARE's got a lot better balance of, they want it to look very good, and that kind of is more with just some strong senior staff. But you'll see that the creative director is the top of the design, and they'll basically say, this is how we want it to feel, this is what I want you to experience. And then the artist's job and the art director on the way down is more to say, this is how we want it to look, to support how it feels and plays and communicates. So like in film, students out there, you might even research mood paintings along the film. So you see the whole story arc. And this will maybe ruin Pixar films for you, but when you see the story arc and the color arc through it, you'll see how they bring you through emotion. And that's kind of a similar thing that we want to do as you go through your games. It's not quite that easy because you have choices and you have time spent and things like that, but you definitely want to guide the player into feeling an emotion. That's more our job to try to accomplish. If it's supposed to be kind of more scary, then it's more dark and drab and pointy shapes and things like that. And then also there's the other part that works very closely with us, which is audio. And so we work close with them to kind of communicate this kind of what I'm thinking is to support what you guys want to do. You know what I mean? And so in many cases, the game director and the art director are pretty equal. And ideally, the art director, once they know kind of like what the flavor should feel like, they'll basically do an art Bible. And then all of us leads will take on, and we'll kind of help our guys, stay in line with like, because with the inside of the art Bible, like even say with Star Wars, when we did Was a Cool Planet, our art director did he had his concept guys make this beautiful new world. It's not in Star Wars, so we didn't have anything to draw from. But LucasArts is very picky with how it has to fit in the universe.
Yeah.
And so what our art director did is he made a kind of an art Bible, and then inside that, the VFX guys would say, okay, this is what the skyboxes would look like inside that, or environments. And so I think many people think that you're just a cog in the machine, and with games you're very much not. You get really a lot of say and a lot of creativity. And I know back in the 90s when I went to school, most everybody wanted to do film because they thought they were going to make a film on their own. And then I literally knew a guy that worked on eyelids for a while. And where I was like, man, I get to touch everything in games, you know what I mean? Before I did VFX. And so
That's totally true.
it's just kind of neat how you get to kind of touch a lot and collaborate. And, as it gets passed down, you actually get to kind of move back up too with your ideas and everything.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and what about, because I think you mentioned about the audio department, because when you are developing a special effects,
the audio.
The audio department is you are working together, or is first the visual video effects, or is first the audio effects, or how? Because I think it's probably the mixture between the audio and the visual video effects is the perfect mixture. I mean, it's like the powerful thing is when you have all together as a whole, no? So you are working directly with
it's a
the
bit-
audio department, or?
At least from my experience, I have the audio guy coming afterwards, you know, but sometimes they need to come before, and they asking me, can you get this done so I can actually start working on the environment noise, or like I was doing some skyboxes with lighting and stuff, and he needed the lighting to be there, and I needed to provide some data and some assets and stuff so he can actually time it. So it depends. Most cases they come afterwards. To be honest, I don't know exactly how they go through the whole game and chasing everything and putting the audio where it has to, but sometimes it's before. They need something to be done in a particular time, so it's a bit back and forth. But I will say most cases they come afterwards, right, Jamie?
Yeah, if you have enough time, it would probably always be after. But we kind of have to work on top of each other just because of schedule a lot of times. So like for cinematic is probably a little more where it just needs to be done, and then there's an audio pass. But say for like gear and guns and things like that, we just work at the same time so we can work in unison. But there's a lot of perks to audio that I guess I didn't know before 10, 15 years ago, but a lot of times what they can do is their sound design or their Foley. So if they know kind of what a gun, like they can go off a concept also and look at a gun, and then they kind of think about like, this is what it'll look like, and as they go. And then that's where we would collaborate a little bit in some of our stand-ups and planning. So we would tell them, well, I want it to be a big bright blue, and as it, it's gonna charge up for a little bit as the animators kind of get it to, and as it anticipates. So they'll need to support some of that and feel like, are they gonna go? Is it gonna sound more like a Harley motorcycle, or is it gonna sound more like a jet or a radar piece? So so then they can kind of work in that time, but then we need to give them all our hooks and the visuals so they can time it kind of like with events in the end, and then they're kind of the last polish. So VFX is oftentimes really late in the schedule. If you look at a waterfall schedule that kind of falls down, we're like here, and then the audio guys are here, and so they oftentimes get pushed to the last minute a lot of times.
Yeah, which is I think it's very important, because the Foley and the audio, it's like you come into the feeling of the in sometimes many times you feel the VFX through the audio, no, through the Foley. No?
Yeah, I think it's quite important actually part of the project, and it's also the music as well. So
the music, all the move.
Yeah,
you can get with the everything put at a whole. No?
Yeah. I mean, sound effects actually are depending on the engine. Sometimes you are the owner of the audio, because actually you can work it out, because I don't know, maybe it's depending on some math that is a shader that actually can drive the audio based on a distance. I don't know, sometimes the audio can be set up in a way that is kind of like a procedural behavior. So like, well, of course there is like volumes and triggers that actually activate the audio based on where you are, but there might be other situations. Like I said, there are so many cases on so many things that you can get to done that probably you have to do the audio yourself. Well, hopefully probably taken from a library and some kind of particular sound that is posed down by the sound designer, but you are the one who needs to hook it up.
I would like to talk to you about the face to our audience. Is someone there in our audience, some of the audience, want to become into a real-time video effects artist? How could be the best chance, or even how, I mean, if someone is watching us and okay, yes, I want to become into a video effects artist, how can be the best or one of the best approach to get this position? I mean, it's like
well, Jimmy and I in that actually we talk about this a lot, remember? But because sounds kind of like, but it depends on where you're from in a way. It's true. Sadly, is the fact, because if you are from a country where there is no development, well, you're gonna have to fly away, and then you have to fly away based on some legal status or whatever. So you have to be realistic on what you can actually reach. In my case, as you know, it's been a bit of jumping until I get to be my green card in the United States, and I can work wherever I want. So it's kind of like finally I can enjoy the industry and I can go anywhere. But somebody might not have that luxury, and they need to be realistic and say, okay, what do I have on my grab? So maybe London, or maybe, I don't know, maybe Barcelona. There is a company actually And the fact is, just you just get there. You just start, and then you start scaling. Jamie, well, being American, so can you tell a little bit your story? Did you see it complicated for you actually to access, or from your point of view?
So I'm trying to figure out what Alex asked. I didn't exactly hear.
It's
what
access to the industry. So bringing the point like from someone outside of the U.S. and depending where, of course, where the source of the work is, that much easier or more difficult when you guys have more luck.
So access to the industry. I mean, we were in a spot with Star Wars where we were looking. I think it was before you guys all. We had a group that came on with Armando, and we were gonna take on a film guy that had no real time experience, but his film reel was awesome. We just didn't know if he could do real time. Turned out he didn't do very well on his test, but we were willing to kind of consider anyone from anywhere. And so as long as language is not a barrier, we have a couple folks that their English is a little rough. Like we have a concept artist that sometimes you're like, what? But we make it work. As long as we can get language good and they're really good at what they do, and you feel like they're a personality fit. I feel like regional or international lines are not really an issue. Other than taking care of green card or the travel part of it, so I don't know much about that. But as far as entry, it's really good to look at hotspots, like say, probably where I am right now around the LA area. If you can afford to live there, it would be great. If you mind the traffic and all that. Austin is great because it's got so many. There's places popping up. There's 2 new companies that popped up within the last 6 months, and some make it, some don't, but there's a really good pool of to drop talent from. So like if something happens to a company, if you try to start up and it doesn't work, there's 3 more places looking. And for us as visual effects artists right now, it is so hard to find guys right now. Like we're trying to hire for a couple spots, and it's just really hard to find people who are have the talent and kind of know where their talent is based off of where their their position would be, and then personality fit is a big one for us. So we want to make sure if you hire that person that you don't mind working with them for the next 5 years. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But anyways, if your skills are really good, I feel like at least for the next quite a few years, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for hiring in VFX, probably more than any other art discipline at least.
Yeah, I had to answer actually that question many times. That why I wanted to do VFX, and well, now as today, I love it. I'll say that's for sure. But like 7-8 years ago, it was a transition in the industry because being concerned about my future, kind of like as a modeler, kind of like, oh my God, it's getting more difficult to find jobs, or I have to travel much more and I need something more stable. So I start digging into real time, and that's the reason. And then I start joining, of course, the technology. It's so exciting. So, but I guess also coming back to the question, you have to be informed. Is it working?
Yeah, it's good. Let me check.
Can you hear me, Jamie?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Oh,
I can hear you.
I thought it was a technical problem. Wait a minute.
No, we don't have to. Okay.
What?
Yeah.
No. Good.
Yeah, unplugged the computer, so
Okay.
it was
So where was I?
run out of battery.
Where was I?
I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I think, do you think this our 3 years career can help students or can help the people
yes.
to come into the industry? And do you think it's a position that worth to go for that? I mean,
that's the thing. I mean, we've been in both sides of the table finding jobs. We've been recruiting and we've been asking for work. So there is a lot going on in that process. So the first will be having the knowledge, for sure, the most you can and the best you can. Second, knowing knowing yourself, your skills. Like, don't show anything, and be careful when some people think, I mean, this is awesome. Maybe for you. So sometimes you have to. That's when you grow up in your education and people is around you. get feedback, push them to speed on your work. So, and actually, so you're ready to say, okay, now I know where to move forward. And the talent is amazing. I mean, I see work from the students kind of like it's scary at the same time, because we can get somehow better, but some stuff actually keeps catching up, So then, as soon as they know their situation, where they are in their skills, and they have a way to prove it, then start finding and understand the industry. Be realistic. Like, what do you have? How much far can you go? Can you speak the language on the country you're gonna be moving on? And then know the legal situation. It's pointless to dream working on Pixar. I mean, I don't say don't dream it, but if your legal status won't allow to do that. Of course, Pixar always can give you your visas, or like DreamWorks did it for me.
Sure.
But then it depends on so many factors. Do you have a degree, or do you have some skill that is so special? US, they hire a lot of people like that, and they put the money, the resources, because it's talent. So you are not spending, you are investing. So then, once you know this, and you think, well, I can be there too. So it's not that difficult. I mean, it's not impossible for sure. But you need to know all the things, at least from my experience, that I have to go from one side of the country, of the planet, to the other one. Wow, it took a few steps. And then it's your personal situation, how young you are. You want to live working in Blizzard and living with 7 guys, sharing an apartment. Yeah, welcome. But then you're working in Blizzard, what the heck, So it's so that you have to value. It's worth the experience. It's worth. We have many young guys coming as contracts, and they are amazing. They are so good because the legal situation. We can hire them for some particular time, and then they have to move on. But you say it's right. So we see them. Then they go to 343, and then they go to Naughty Dog recently. And it's kind of like, okay, man, good for you. So it's not about you leave us on out of the blue. No. It's actually good for you. So it's kind of like a step by step, but you have to work and just be very, like looking at everything, so you know exactly where you are when you can go. And be realistic, that's for sure.
We have a lot of stuff kind of planned to help the students also, to exit and to be ready, because there's a lot of, I think a lot of people think there's kind of a standard way to interview or things like that, but when you've interviewed hundreds of folks, there's a couple things that we really look for that are really important, and a few of them are that personality of, you got a problem, I'm here to fix it, how do I help? It's kind of like, instead of like, oh man, it's a problem,
how do we do it?
You know what I mean? Like you gotta kind of have some of that attitude and those things. But we have a lot of kind of knowledge that we want to share with how to be that kind of workman. That is like, hey, I love working with that guy, and here's why. And not just as a VFX artist, but just as an employee, as a person, and as a contributor. But then, hopefully, as you get on your career, we might be able to help get into that position of, hey, this is a leadership quality guy, because you never know when your number's going to get called. Like, say, there aren't a lot of VFX guys, usually in a studio. And so if one leaves or one wants to go to another project or something like that, and then your number gets called, and you kind of look around, you're like, hey, this person would fit that bill really, really well. So we really want to try to prepare, man, when you're, kind of, it's not to be, to kiss butt or to be a manager, brown nose or anything. It's to kind of be there to show the value in the skills that you have, to build your skills,
Yep.
and then, to show some of those leadership qualities.
Yep.
Definitely, yeah. And first to our audience, can you explain a little more about how is structure our career more in depth? Because we got a program, very
the content
program, and the content is 3-year content. You can explain more.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
in
Jamie and
depth.
we've been talking many hours, like, because it's kind of like I need to fit someone with 25 years of my experience. He needs to do the same with 20 of his. How do you do that? It's unless he's living with you 24 hours, it's hard. And not just that, but it's how do you show how do you teach something, some particular, not a tool, workflows, tutorials, there are tons of them. That's easy. But like he said, there are situations where we look for tutorials. Don't get me wrong, everybody's working and kind of like, how do you do that? And I did it before, but I just don't remember, so I have to, and then you have your resources, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
sometimes there is no tutorial for that. So how do you make it? I mean, if I don't have someone to ask, how do I do my work? So I have to figure it out. So our goal is trying to get the people, those 25, 20 years, whatever, kind of like you're starting from now, right? So, and you're gonna start building, so it will be a day you have those 20 years. But until that time, so just you need to absorb little things and not just a particular workflow, how to do a particular explosion or this kind of like whatever holograms. There are tricks, but you have to be able to say, okay, I understand now that I need to be creative. I need to figure it out things by myself. And if I don't know the tool, kind of, is there a tool to do these kind of things? And then, yeah, actually there is a tool to do this, and I will help you. Or maybe you have to do something in Maya and you don't know Mel scripting, and it's not needed, but it will help you. I have to do a few things recently, and my Mel scripting is okay. I'm not insane, but I have to figure it out. And I got a friend, hey, dude, if I have to do this loop, how do I get this task to be repeated 1,000 times? Because I don't want to do one at a time, of course. Then that philosophy or that mentality, we want to be sure that during the training the people understand it's not tutorials, okay? It's not A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. It's from here to there. How many paths you have, which one will you choose? And if it doesn't, there is no path whatsoever, you have to create it yourself. So we think because actually it's interesting, he has a different background than me, so we are going to be supporting, we need to become generalist in a way, right? So I'm going to be supporting a few things that are my specialty, he's going to be supporting some others, so it's kind of like, here is the master of animation, Mr. Jamie, so he will teach you how to do curves and how to control ease in, ease out. Then here is the master of the lighting, so, and I will help you to see how is the mood when you do fog or these kind of environment effects. So we are thinking, for sure, we're going to have to split, because it's a lot of content. Is 3 years enough? It should be enough, or 2 years is enough. Yeah, you can say 6 months is enough. Well, yeah, but you're going to be short in so many other things. And it's just, again, I can't tell you tutorials, but that's not the point. The point is how to go from A to B, and you have to figure it out. So, of course, from the beginning, it's not going to be that simple. You need to go, you need to learn a few things and knowing, that's how you do these kind of things. I mean, I'm still surprised new developments that are being done, Houdini like an example, and now there is like an example, vertex animation, where you can actually, before to doing, how do you do morphing? Blend shapes in Maya, yeah, it's easy. You have your targets, how do you do that in real time? So now basically the trick is you paint it in a texture, and then the texture actually deform things based on vertex offset, kind of like, holy crap. And kind of like, somebody figured it out, they put it together, and there is the tools for do that, and now everybody's kind of like, I want to do it. So the resources were not there before, but now, so there are tendencies, and that information we have to be up to date. And during the training, we hope that actually we can give the students all that stuff, so they can know, okay, this is impossible, or it's not, and if there is hard ways to do it, you need to find easier ways. Do you think? Kind of like.
Yeah, so I think one of the really good things about this course is going to be, we basically want to peel back the industry, and we want to kind of give a good glimpse of anywhere from how things really work. Because when I went to school, there was no knowledge on that, and we actually didn't even do fundamentals in school. This was back in the 90s. So with our experience, we're going to have to pack a lot in. But the good thing is we'll do it just like we do, our day-to-day jobs. We're going to schedule, and then inside of that, kind of like that time box, we're going to kind of reveal and then practice and then try to refine inside of that block that we might have for that specific piece of information. But the one thing I wanted to mention is the VFX, the best VFX artists that we've seen just in our industry or ourselves or the interviews that we see, it's the people who are self-driven. And so if you're willing to basically, I'll learn it from these instructors and maybe bounce some ideas off my co-students, but I go home and I dig in and I practice. I might even look online at some more supporting things, or just learn from failure, try it out and go from there. Those folks who are willing to kind of like just jump up there and try it, but then put in the work and just have that work ethic, those are the guys that we want to hire. And so those are the people, I always say, guys, those are the people we want to hire. And those are the people that we want to build as students. So we kind of it's kind of the thought that when we're thinking about the curriculum and everything, we don't want to release students into the wild. We want to release people who are ready to work, and so they're ready to be on the job. So through the program, the VFX program, we basically want to treat a lot of it like you're on the job. So we'll do reviews and critiques and things like that, just like you would just when we're at our day-to-day jobs.
Yeah, so in some ways like
Simulation.
Yeah, well, it's like to teach the students the language, which allow them to think like a real-time VFX artist. It's like it's not only to train in a concrete skill, in a concrete software or plugin or anything.
Yeah, it's a language.
It's a language.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
wow.
it's a form of life at the end of the day, because like he said, you go home and I can choose playing games, watch a movie, or catch up with something that I find out this new Rebirth video, super awesome. How did they do it? And this and that, and everybody's talking about it, and everybody's looking into it. It's kind of like, wow, the resources are there, so I can do that too, in a way, I guess.
One really good thing too is I like how the structure is set up. So on the on the last year, you're actually jumping in there, and it'll kind of teach how you may have a personality of, like, say, a designer or a programmer or whatever that isn't that fun to work with, and that's going to happen, and it might even be your boss. We've had that before, and so you never know what you're going to get. But the good thing is you can kind of get used to like how to work with it and how to get along, whatever the case may be. But then there's the work side of it where you can try to we like to deliver what's required, but we like to over deliver. So we like to do it in a timely manner. We like to do it for games. It's something that runs with performance in mind, and that's a whole big section is the performance part of it. But when you're running real time, that's super important. And we like to, we call them our clients, but our designers or whoever we deliver to, we want them to walk away and say, man, that was really cool. And so we kind of set our internal goals that way, and we really want to bring that to the students, kind of a real way to do that. And that's pretty much through the whole course is how we'll have that in mind. Kind of like the on-the-job training is we'll be showing how to deliver in a really good way. So because kind of one of the goals is you don't want a designer to come back and say, it's not good, can I have more? Or you know what I mean? So you want to understand on the front end and then provide everything that they want, and then follow up with can I do more, or things like that.
Yeah.
So sounds terrific.
Yeah. QA.
Yeah, of course. Now Frank is our technical director. We're going to pass to the Q&A section of the webinar. We are doing this kind of webinar because we are in different part of the world. So we are going to start with the questions. Fran, we have questions in the. Fran? Fran?
He's listening to it.
I'm going to speak in Spanish. ¿Tenemos preguntas?
No, por ahora no.
We have, ¿cuánta gente hay? How many people there are?
20 más o menos.
You guys?
Okay.
You here?
So, okay. Now we have people there in the online. Do you have here any kind of question here? In the face-to-face people here?
En español, si queréis. Sí.
Or you want in Spanish and we can translate to in English?
Por ejemplo, desde lo que estudié yo, por ejemplo, o sea, lo que estudio aquí, que es generalista 3D, hasta lo vuestro, ¿cuál sería la ruta más o menos para llegar? Quiero decir, no sé, ¿por dónde tendría que ir especializándome?
Pero, okay, so the question is, he has already kind of like a starting point with as a generalist, so he knows a little bit of everything, and if he wants to transition from that point to VFX, actually I think you are halfway already, because it's true, as FX artist you're gonna have to model, you're gonna have to understand about UVs. If I tell you, okay, get this object, break it everything into phases and normalize the UVs so you know what I'm talking about in a way, so then you see you are halfway. So if someone never did any modeling at all, is just an animator and doesn't even know what is normalizing UVs, then it's not big deal, it's easy to learn, but the point is that's one single example, but you scale that to lighting, animation, cameras, shading, you name it, then you are halfway. Now the only thing is, it's not the same working in Maya 100% of the time that working in Unreal. One thing is offset rendering, another thing is real time. But
so
go ahead.
Yeah, there's something really cool. Like on the SOTOR team, we got a guy. His name is Brad Lewis. He's less effects and more hard surface modeling, but he's on the effects team.
Yeah.
And he actually is also a conceptor. So he's a Star Wars nerd. He can concept, he can model, and he can do VFX. He does his own texture work and all that. So there really are no guys like that, but he can bring it from all the way from concept all the way to having 10 models using one texture. This is being super cheap, and he's got like, a couple lightsabers, a couple rifles, a couple handheld guns. It's because of his modeling background. So he's actually more of a hard surface model guy, but he's found himself such a cool niche. We actually need to pull him over to Anthem, but we don't have another guy like that. So it's kind of interesting how you may be able to he actually has kind of created his own job because of his value in his modeling and his VFX. So, you never know where it may bring you. I like modelers and animators the most out of, having years of experience for VFX. Usually those are really, really important. Other skills are technical skills are important too, but man, those are two heavy ones to bring into as a VFX artist.
Yeah, so you are not that far from that path. So.
Okay. More question? We have any question from the people in internet, Fran?
Sí, ¿cuál es la diferencia entre VFX de videojuegos y VFX de cine?
Ooh,
wow. We got a question.
That's a good one.
Which are the difference? The main difference between VFX in real time or VFX in cinema?
In film.
Statics.
Oh my gosh, I can take 1 hour on that one.
Almost nothing.
You want to take it? The difference. Well, actually, yeah. Let me go for it. Do you hear it?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear.
Okay, so it's the difference between effects in film and effects in games. And I've been thinking about this a lot because it's part of the training, one of the chapters that we wanted to talk, and with examples. Okay, so in film, clearly you have so many resources, right? Because you make a simulation, you can run movies like Moana, and you can have, I don't know, thousands of hours of rendering or catching the mesh to make the fluids, and it looks amazing, looks perfect. How do we do that in games? We don't have, we can do lighting and we bake it and we have render farms to do that, but in effects, if I have to do fluids, my gosh, it's impossible that you have real-time simulations. Some people is writing stuff like that using graphic cards and GPUs and stuff, but in games, it has to be, so there are sort of like systems which are pretty much very standard. And like an example, water, you just will do planes with displacement, movement, and then on top of the displacement, you put noise in one direction, another one, and maybe like my brother actually, who is a software developer, and he did all the Skull and Bones water system, and it's all real time. So when the water picks a height, it changes the color, so it looks like the foam on the top. So if you do explosions, it will be the same philosophy, right? So you use Houdini, and Houdini have all these tools so awesome already, so set ups, and you can get your smoke coming in. So what we do actually is we found a way to mix both. So we render in images that explosion, and then we create what is a flipbook. And then we put that into a particle, and it keeps, it's kind of like old school pictures, when you have your notebook and you were scrolling the drawings, it's exactly that. So but you use Houdini, you use FumeFX, or whatever tools you have. So we actually have to, the point on the question is good because you need to know effects in film a little bit, because you need to be able to do it. But then you have to know how you convert that into a real time stuff, which is that's interesting,
Sure.
But yeah, that's a pretty good question actually.
What do you think?
So, it's kind of funny. So when one of the main things on real-time side is you have to see everything from every angle. And so this is kind of funny, but back when I first started, I did characters on a football game, and you only had 4-sided legs and 3-sided arms. So you character guys out there, you know how impossible that would be to make it look good, right? But we had to. So we had our high-res guy was 350 triangles. It's so small. But since you have to see it from every angle, and you got to kind of figure out how to be creative in that. The other part with real time is kind of where Armando was going is you kind of have to figure out manual tricks to simulate what the film guys are doing. So like when you gotta do like your simulations, you got to run it on a sprite that faces the camera, or you have to bake your simulations, things like that. And then if you can do real-time physics, like we had really good programming on Incredible Hulk when I worked on it. We had a physics guy that made, I could animate a gathering of a telekinetic guy, and he would throw pieces, and then it would turn into physics. And so, if you can leverage tech like that, then it makes our job a lot easier. So, yeah, and then of course the biggest one is performance. So this one big thing is real time that we'll be always conscious about is like, okay, cool, does it run in game or would it run in game? Because it's super important. You can't just blow the budget, and you have to think about, okay, what if I have 4 or 16 guys on screen, and you kind of need a plan for that on the front end. And then that's the tricky part with real time, is trying to figure, how do I make this look as good as it should be, as if it were just in film, but to get that into a super small performance budget.
Yeah.
So that's some of the real-time side it's a little more difficult.
Like I can give you another example, let's say, and I saw some guy actually doing some tutorial on that. That was pretty smart actually. And kind of like, how do you make crowds, in games, but not like 10, 20, no, like 100, let's say 1,000. How do you make that? And they are moving and coming. So basically, the process is, as soon as you know numbers like this, you're right away as a VFX in real time, you're thinking, okay, particle system. So I need a particle system that will throw guys, 1,000 of them, with a given behavior or path or, I don't know, randomized, I have so many things. But the thing is, like, I can't throw 1,000 models with whatever 1,000 polys each. So then you render them and you just throw a plane. So, but now, okay, well, what if the guy is changing position? Well, you throw all the renders around and you make a shader that based on the camera angle or the direction of the guy is moving, you see the side, the back, and then you have 1,000 characters moving. Kind of like when I've been learning these things, kind of like, oh my God, that is so smart, isn't it? Sure. Yeah, because in film, yeah, you have the tools, but you have to render them, so you have to wait for the computation, you have to wait for the rendering time, and it looks fantastic, but there is a lot of waiting time in there. When in real time, there is no waiting, you have to develop and throw it. So there are so many tricks. And again, like, I didn't develop that, I learned it from somebody else. Maybe one day I develop something, somebody else learned from that, and that's why I say shared knowledge. Because it's a trick at the end of the day, but it's quite smart actually.
Yeah, she's like, yes, working in cinema, special effects, or it's like talking about the 2D, because in cinema or not real-time VFX, it's like working by lawyers, and you have all the time to leave the rendering, working.
But we can't do that.
They are in real time. It's like it's the pure effects. You need to work in 3D.
Yeah, it's like an example. I did this. You remember Umbara in Star Wars? So there was this meeting about doing a level in Star Wars where the fight and everything was going to happen on a train. Okay, remember this is a MMO, ton of players, like resources are a little bit less than the typical game, so it's kind of like it needs to be super optimized. How do you get a train and you can actually go back and forth, whatever, and the whole environment is moving all the time, hours. So it's kind of like, of course, and then you think you cannot build. Some people say, okay, make a sphere and just get the train running around. That is a little bit, that's not as smart in a way. So I mean, this is it's a very simple trick, and it's pretty much what you use is you just create a particle system that throw the plants and the floor. Probably the floor actually we did just a scrolling texture, so it feels kind of like it's moving, but it was just a plane like that. And the train, nothing is moving at the end of the day. Only the texture and plants coming through like that, which I actually set up a system that they will rotate and change speeds, and there you go. You have a train for 10 hours if you want to, that is everything moving. So it's another trick. So in film, you have to do it, but in games, you have to fake it.
Yeah, one of the cool things about that particular chart is like Armando had to solve around collision issues, because when you move something in games, when it has to do collision, 30 or 60 checks every single second, it's super expensive. So you couldn't even, it's hard to even afford that. So now you got to figure out, how do I make it look like it's moving? Another problem-solving thing, right? And in the end, it looks really easy, but when you're trying to figure out how to make that all work, it's just a big problem you need to try to solve.
It's a lot of testing, so until it works.
So it seems to be more tricky.
Yeah.
No, because you are fighting with a lot of elements.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it's tricky to make in 2D or to make in for cinema or.
Yeah.
But you have probably less freedom in real time
Yeah,
because
that's why you have to be creative. And
yeah,
find
it's
out.
yeah. Too many enemies, you know, for the final results respect to the cinema. And we have another questions, more questions, other questions.
Que sepas que tu hijo está en el chat.
We have to say
Really?
the Hector.
Okay, hola Hector. My kid Hector is talking in the chat. Yeah, I'll tell him.
Hey, how's it going, Hector?
Hay otra pregunta, si es un salto muy grande para entrar en el mundo de los VFX respecto a otras cosas, la programación, 3D, etc.
But okay, I'm not sure.
It's asking.
It's a big jump, you know, to go into VFX instead of other fields.
Is it a big jump too? No.
Which you mean maybe it's much harder to get into VFX than others? Well,
Is the question more, is it hard to jump from something to VFX or VFX to something else?
like if I'm understanding that if you have to pick something, should I be a modeler? Should I be an animator? Should I be a lighter? Should I be a VFX? Is that, you think it's something like that?
La pregunta es, he estudiado un máster multidisciplinar de 3D y programación, pero nada especializado.
Okay, yeah.
Es un salto muy grande. Irse a los VFX.
Okay. Yeah, so the question is similar to the one you did actually, and he already did a lot of work on several things, you know, but it's not specialized on anything in particular, and he's thinking like, okay, so if I point in that direction, how much complex would that be? You know, kind of like that. What do you think? Do you hear?
Sorry, can you say that last part? How much what?
Like how hard would that be, you know, instead of other possible options? The guy has a background already on kind of like a generalist again, so same situation.
Yeah. So man, so if you are a really strong generalist, the thing you need to figure out is, do you have that animation eye and that physics eye to make VFX, to convert to the VFX artist? And when we do testing for interviews, we do what seems like a really stupid test, which is to drop a box. You have to drop 2 boxes. One is 1,000 pounds, one is 1 pound, and you drop it from about 20 feet. And we see what they do. Almost everybody fails it because they can't see that a 1,000-pound box is gonna fall fast, and a small one's gonna kind of bounce a little bit differently. And so for us, you're not an animator. We know that, but we want to see how you do it. For one, could you tell the difference of make the weighting happen? And then 2 is when you hand it in, if it's not good, you tell us, I'm not great with animation, I need help with that. You know what I mean? It's not my strength, but here it is. Most times what we have is they hand in a really crappy test and they say, I'm good with it. You know what I mean? And so we do the animated boxes, we do an ability, and we do an explosion for the most part. And so like I kind of came from a generalist background. I started in characters, motion capture, and then I was environment for quite a while, full environment. And then we needed some help with visual effects in cinematics. And I was like, I love this. I'll try. And I actually even put in a little bit of extra time for it, outside of my regular responsibilities. And then I found that I was like, hey, I really like this. So if you're asking if you should convert to VFX, then I'm saying it's the best discipline, me personally. But it is really for the VFX artists, compared to other disciplines, is a little more random. And so you really get to go from this thing to that thing, even inside of like, I have this ability and that ability. It's very different. For me, that's one thing that was really attractive. But also it really does challenge your kind of like, you have to get a really good process so you're efficient, because it is so random. You have to kind of get this knowledge and just quickly fuse it in. So like say Armando, so this is really cool. A lot of art directors, they don't like film guys. They're scared to hire them. Me personally, that's where games are going. So I personally think that is where we need to kind of draw from some of our experience, especially in the newer gen consoles. And so he was a really good hire because he had real time and film. And so he can tell us how film guys are doing things. And so not really a generalist, but a generalist in industry. You know what I mean? And so I personally think, yeah, generalists they really have a step up on the game. And so
Yeah.
I know sometimes that might require a little more schooling or a little more, you've been doing it for a while, but all in all, if you set yourself on that path, on the front end, kind of like being a doctor, right? It takes a while to be a doctor, but those guys are set in a really good career path. If you have that really good generalist-based knowledge, man, it's super, super valuable.
Yeah, that's why actually when we structure the training for the VFX, the first steps to do actually is become a generalist. Make sure you understand all the different skills, and you actually not maybe an expert, but control them and be confident enough. So I can give examples like in modeling. I model IOCAD, the planet, and it's based on hexagons. And there is no way, if you go, I can test it. Actually, get to any tool in 3D and build a geosphere with hexagons, but control the amount of hexagons you can have. So there is no tool whatsoever. Now, but BML, and I found actually some tricks, etc. I got the ML script actually to build this sphere. So if I didn't know the modeling side, kind of like, I would have to be modeling that pieces one by one, and it takes like minutes, 5 minutes to build. And actually, I remember showing that to my art director, and I think, how many planks you want, hexagons, and then actually UVs, and it makes it easier because you have the vision as a modeler. So without that, then, well, like he said, if you are not confident on something, that's not a problem, so you move forward and you ask for advice, and we support each other. So unless you're the only VFX guy in the team, then you're not done. But general, there is a huge team actually around you that actually can help you out with that. If you are self-sufficient for everything, man, you are all set. That's why, again, I've done many jobs, many stuff, and I still do my modeling because I love modeling, and I do my character work and stuff, and because I love it. It's kind of like my hobby. But as a profession, VFX, it's by far, you don't end up being just comfortable, okay, I'm done. No, man. It's just every day it keeps getting, and you see the technology, and now the new GPUs, or the next X-Gen, the next platforms, or whatever, game consoles, and you have to be up to date. So I think, but it's key that you have like a super wide vision of everything also.
Yeah. Yep. So see, the people likes to make video effects real time. What's the thing to enroll with us? It's like it's offering a training to help and support to have confidence people to come into this area, this role position. So first is the people have to ask themselves if they want to go to this kind of VFX, this kind of role position, and that's the point. We're trying to help people to go to this.
And it's a good deal. A VFX guy is a how is said, the golden goose is how you say it. The golden goose. It's kind of like, it's a big deal. It's kind of, it's not. I don't want to be pompous about it. Not at all. Yeah. But you feel proud of it when you talk on interviews or you get a job offer. It's kind of like, wow, okay, cool. I don't regret at all.
And a little bit of feedback of how you know that, and like what Armando was saying. It's not like, oh, we're so in demand, but our positions, they really are in demand. It's hard to find guys right now. And then you kind of couple that with like. Just had a London and a China LinkedIn in the last couple of days of VFX positions. I don't want to go there. I'm in Austin, that's where I want to be. But you end up, if you can build yourself a good reel, but then also a little bit of a reputation among the folks who you work with. So if you get recommendations, or when somebody's looking, like I need to find Armando. I need to get that guy now. You know what I mean? That the game industry is pretty small. So that can happen pretty quick, but
yes, that's what people actually. I don't think they understand that it's small. So once you build up a name, it's not that you are whatever fantastic. No, it's just your name is attached to titles, studios and stuff. You are kind of like an entity, and you are being chased in a way. So which is awesome, And the recruiters, they do their job, and it's up to you. You can move or not, but it's a perfect career because of that. I used to do lighting, like an example, and I love it as well, the technical part of it. But in a film, there are like 100 lighters, 200 lighters, whatever. The film finished, what do you do with that people? You know, all that people needs to move to another project. You know, and then unless you are in a Vancouver, London, or those places, it's awesome. I mean, I have so many friends, lighters, and they are just bouncing, and you see their resumes are insane. So many movies we all watch. But the fact is that kind of job actually requires you to be in those spots, because otherwise, but for us, it's kind of like more, you cannot get to choose, which is it's a luxury today, actually. So
you can say that this role position is a prestige one in the sector. Or one of
everybody in the game industry, I think it's necessary. But VFX in particular, is not because it's difficult. It's not difficult. It's the question because it's so wide. And like an example, I don't have an animation background, and I learned a lot about animation just looking at my own effects, where a quarter of a second make a difference. You know, and kind of like increase like 0.100 blah blah blah. And kind of like now it's there. It's kind of like then I surprised myself, kind of like, oh my goodness, I didn't know, I never knew that before, and now because of doing it on a daily basis, or you get feedback from your friends, kind of like, I think the flash is a little bit too quick, real delay a little bit, and it's you don't get that on the training. Kind of like you have to build it up. So of course, after 2 years doing explosions and all the different elements, you get it for sure. But you have to. It's kind of like any animator will tell you that you need the practice. That's for sure.
Sure.
Because otherwise, it's getting the timing is so hard. I think it's the hardest part on the VFX side, kind of the timing on the stuff, and being able to tell yourself, this flash is coming late, or maybe the action on the gun or whatever. So you know it, and because again, the physics on the engine might be there, but might not be. So
you got the train eye, no?
That's I think that's the most tricky part.
So they are both are telling that it's a prestige position. It's a very nice position. You can enjoy probably, no?
Of
doing
course,
these kind of things.
You'll not get bored.
So whatever I want to go to the VFX real time, we can recommend to go and try to get because I think it's worth it. So it's very interesting. Okay, it's very nice chat.
¿Ayuda a saber programar a hacer efectos especiales para videojuegos?
A lot actually. So he's asking like if having a background in programming, or knowing at least programming, does it help? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, for instance, like we have a Houdini expert. He doesn't work down in BIOWARE. He's an EA guy. He's super technical. I'm guessing he was a computer science guy. And we have seen some of those come through that are way more on the technical side. But if they can get, if you can kind of see the art side of it a little more, then it would be really valuable. Just to be honest, a lot of times those two skills are different sides of the brain, so they don't mesh. But you do see them sometimes. We had a graphics artist, a graphics programmer that I worked with years ago. He was a really good artist. We had another guy that was a comic. He could draw comics, and he was a programmer. So you never really know if you can get into the art side, which it can be taught definitely with your fundamentals. Your tech background is super valuable. So for me, I've been through scripting. We had to use a couple different scripting languages in my time, and sometimes your VFX get driven by scripts and things like that. I'm a cripple. I can't sit and write syntax, but I can understand it, and then I can change it and shape it, and I take a lot of notes on it, right? But if you're able to kind of leverage your technical side, you may be one of the more like say Houdini experts, or you're a heavy shader guy, which is really valuable because some of us we're artists and we don't have that technical side, so we're trying to learn from guys like you. You know what I mean? And, it's definitely valuable. The conversion is just really depends on how the creative side of your brain works, and if you think you can put in the work to try to get there on that.
Yeah, and there is also something which actually I learned from my brother, who is a programmer, pretty good. It's just not knowing the code or the tools or statements or loops on this and that. It's the mindset a programmer have. And have in mind, we're talking about real time, needs to be optimized, needs to be super efficient. So you do a shader and you think you just can drop nodes or whatever. Kind of like, well, it's working. You don't know, man. You can do that with a quarter of what you have over there. So a programmer has already the mindset that he needs the less lines possible to achieve the same result. Therefore, when they build their effects, they are thinking already, how do I do this the most optimal way? And that's not easy. You know, sometimes
Definitely, yeah.
we do actually our effects, and we have several steps in production, and the last one, which is the polishing, is where we go and we say, okay, can we do the same effects with 10 particles instead of 100? Or can I get this shader? And you realize that you put some math in there with some lerps and some sines and cosines, and actually you could do that with only one node. And then that saves actually draw calls or effects like we use in Star Wars. And we have to be checking how many effect specs, which is what we use to load all the effects. And if I can do it in 3 instead of at 30. So the programmer actually is already kind of like ready to think that way. And for me, like an example, it took me some time to think in that way. But today I check everything twice, kind of like, what can I take away?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't have to, but you never know if something else is going to come up later. So pretty much, yeah.
But
that's a good question as well.
Seems to be like using even the two sides of the brain.
Yeah.
Because it's like the logical or the artist part of it. So it's very interesting.
Well, I have to say, actually, recently we have an interview of someone applying, and he had a background as a programmer, and actually kind of like pretty good. And he did the test, but the artistical side, it was shorter, so it didn't match.
Yeah.
So you have to be realistic. If you're a programmer, you have to understand that art is also required, and visuals and sort of like a taste. So you should know, like, this explosion doesn't feel logic. And even though you're an amazing programmer and you could actually program that in OpenGL or whatever, it doesn't really matter if you don't know how to show it. When another kid is playing the game, it's like, that looks like crap. Who did that? That can happen. So it doesn't really matter your background. If at the end of the day, we're talking about visuals, which is what matters.
Which is really interesting because, Bill, please go on.
No, so I was just going to mention some of that might be, like, so I do a lot of coaching with kids in sports, so it's a little bit easy to equate, but some of that is sometimes you get a kid that's not an athlete, they're just not athletic. They got to work a lot harder at that skill, and you kind of got to go at teaching them those fundamentals a little bit different, and then ask them to go practice at home or do a little more of that. I think in the same way, it's definitely a teachable skill, but it may take a little more work, on the front end. So it's like we teach fundamentals and things like that. And you might have to work a little bit harder than the next guy that's like an animator or got a big background on the art side. The cool thing about the tech side is more and more now with newer technology, you can use your tech to actually speed up your art side and complement it. And that's where like my shader work is not that great. I have to try to find nodes or node networks and then fix them and change them instead of just writing all from scratch. It would take me forever. Luckily, we have a lot of that already available, in our projects, so I can just kind of switch and change things. But if you're like, oh, I know how to quickly, code or use nodes, any newer engine is going to be a node-based editor. You're miles ahead on that side to be able to drive it. So, but anyways, you might be able to, it might be a learned skill. So it's kind of hard to say what your depends on your personality as far as learning. But the technical side is really important. When we interview, we want to make sure that we don't have technical idiots, because then they can't take on any of the technical side. So.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Is it like the recent brain studies?
Yeah,
is about how to combine, because I don't know in USA, but in Spain it's like you're studying for a more technical sector. You are engineer, or you have to study it for a more creative sector like fine arts. Or
that's why VFX is so cool. It's right in the middle.
Yeah. It's like but it's interesting because it's in the future. It's like this kind of new profession demand that the people join both sides of the brain and build these skills with both sides of the brain.
I mean, of course, like a programmer in film, is way much more stronger than. I mean, I'm talking about effects, because in effects it's all cheating. When in film there is a lot of coding and there is a lot of ways you can actually make things much faster. I don't know, you need the code anyways. Probably you're gonna need some C++ or whatever it is, Python you're using. So in film they use it a lot. So, like an example, I don't have those skills in programming. So for me, transition from VFX real time to VFX film, I wouldn't feel confident at all. I mean, I can do stuff, but not like at that level because it's different completely. But it goes the same way around. You know, that guy coming from film to real time, it doesn't really matter how good the programming is if he doesn't have this point of view on how to cheat. You know, the real time process. It's pointless for them as well.
Sure.
Next.
We have a last question.
Yeah.
A mí me pregunta lo contrario, si es necesario dibujar bien para hacer efectos especiales.
Well, actually,
asking the opposite now, no?
No. Well, it's not. No, they're asking if you are a good painter or drawing, and if you're good for doing VFX. I'm okay, sort of, for drawing, but I think like an example doing effects in 2D, and I've been like, oh my god, amazing. You know, there's some animators from Disney, old school, doing these fluids, and so have in mind that real time is like the notebook. It's a flip book of images. So if you are good at painting, you can do effects that I can't. That's for sure, because you paint them. Like an example, because I think I'm a pretty good modeler, I do the same trick. So I do my explosions and I model the light shafts coming out of the explosion and I change them. So it feels kind of like it's realistic, the light coming out, and it's the geometry. Or you see games like in Fortnite, like an example with the puff coming out of the ground, that's geometry with the shader. But if a guy is good at drawing, maybe he wants to do it by drawing and you paint that smoke perfect. So it's good. I mean, if you are awful, you can be safe, it's okay. But if you are really good, that helps a lot as well. And also concepting, like you said, Brad, you know, this guy builds sabers, like I told you.
Yeah.
And he's awesome painting. So he makes all his concept, he sends to Lucas. Lucas say, actually, that's pretty nice, or that's not, actually, because it's similar to something we're gonna be doing, so shut it. But then, like, he makes every single concept, and I see that we are in a meeting and he's painting right there, and he's a modeler, so it's a good resource. If you have it, yeah, for sure there is a space for that.
So for me, I'm not a very strong painter. I'm good enough to do my own textures, you know, or say, you know, to manipulate my renders enough. But for me, ever since I was, you know, I was 19 when I started in the industry, I had to depend a little more on my view of 3D. So I've always had a pretty good sense of 3D, so I could, you know, model pretty well. I couldn't draw really to save my life, compared to when you see some of our concept painters, they're ridiculously good.
Yeah.
And so when I compare to them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do that. But I have to, it's kind of like if you have a really weak technical side, you have to kind of figure out how to get around that a little bit, you know what I mean? And so, like, the one thing that is important, I would say, even, you know, like for me, the one thing I had to learn how to do is to show motion. So if I were to try to communicate, like, say, to a junior guy, like, this is kind of how this explosion should be. It's not a normal, just like a fire explosion. You know, I can easily draw little bits and pieces, because I know those are the pieces I need to make each entity of. So if I have little smoke trails coming out, and then I have sparks, you know, filled in, things like that, we should at least be able to draw kind of like the motion of things, and it can be scribbles. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a good piece of art. But I guess, you know, you can survive without it, but you do need to kind of, you know, fill in your gaps.
You do it. I see people actually in cinematics, they do their storyboard, and it doesn't have to look fantastic. It's just a help for visual, you know.
Sure.
Like, same in film, you know. In film, of course, it's people specifically for drawing those storyboards. But for us, in real time, sometimes it's just for helping the vision of it, and sometimes actually it's an asset you're developing. So
Sure.
yeah, but it is helpful for sure.
Something kind of funny. One time I got a storyboard from a designer, and I couldn't tell if it was upside down. But then once he explained it really quick, I was like, perfect. I can see all the motion. I can see the shots. It was great.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Okay, so then we have more question, or it's okay?
Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay, well, I have to get thanks a lot to be here and to be there. You're very busy all the time, so thank you for being here and joining us in this webinar. Please, an applause for both professionals that are here with us. Applause. And of course, to get thanks to all the people, all the audience, the online and the face-to-face. Now we are here, so anything, just you wanna tell us or contact us, we are at your disposal for explain more in depth our training or anything. So thank you everybody, and I hope we see you soon.
Okay, Jamie. See you, man.
Good to talk with you guys.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.